Welcome to our 136th Guerrilla Radio Live. I guess we're live. I got a special guest here tonight, Danny Struck, head of the president, second time. I guess you can get elected 2 times to the Coaches Association presidency.
That or forced into it. Well, I think one forced in. I didn't realize 136, man. That's probably one of the most special numbers anybody can get. 136 is always a big one.
Yes. So we're going to be talking IHSAA meeting and all of the fun stuff, the emerging sports, everything that went on with the meeting and everything going on this week. We wanted to do it a little bit sooner, but trying to get some answers questioned and some questions answered. No, Jeremiah, we're not, you set the bar pretty high, so but lots of stuff to discuss and go over. Gonna talk a little bit about what the emerging sport designation is. It's a year old, and it's very interesting that, like how you said that. I know we were talking earlier about how it got. You guys proposed the girls wrestling last year, and then 10 minutes later they came out with a new rule, I guess, called the emerging sports, and then I'm sure the light bulb went off in your head at that time last year.
Yeah, it happened at the exact same time. First, I think I really just want to talk about all the stories Jeremiah Maggart told me last time I visited him. I don't know, but what about a year ago? Let's go back like 3 or 4 more years. Greg Ratliff had mentioned it. I think when he was president, and then more than mentioned it, tried to make things happen. And then Jake O'Neill kept the ball rolling. I just want to make sure people know, like, I didn't just jump in and, hey, second presidency, something happened. No, like, these guys were working their butts off. And then during COVID, Jake was actually going to give the presentation to the IHSAA, and he calls me up like the day before and says, hey, man, I have COVID. Can you go up there? And I take off school and I drive up. And right before me, volleyball went, and right before that, we were sat there all day. They did this emerging sports status thing, and I was kind of like, what the heck's that? And we'll get into that later, because I was like, aren't we just asking to have sports? Why do you have to have a rule? So we presented, and I thought it went great. And everybody sits around and nods. And a lot of times when you present with the IHSAA, you leave feeling awesome. Like, I think every single thing I presented is going to happen. Like wrestlebacks, I mentioned it. They love it. It's going to happen. And then you leave and you find out nobody liked it. But when we left that one, I learned what emerging sports status really meant. And it means that this group of individuals believes in what you're doing. And even though we didn't reach the sanctioning sports status of 50% or more of our participating schools in 3 different IHSAA districts, we can get into that more, 40, 40, 40, having girls wrestling, they're going to go ahead and recognize it anyway. And for some people, I've got a few phone calls lately that say, well, then it's no different. Like, yeah, recognition is a big thing. That goes from just, you guys doing wrestling in your basement to now, hey, do it in front of everybody. We are going to say we are behind this. So now every principal that wasn't sure of it, the IHSAA is telling them, yeah, we're sure of it. We're behind it. Every AD that wasn't sure about letting a girl join the guys team, but now girls team possibly, it says they're behind it. So it is a huge step. The word emerging doesn't sound like a real thing, but to the voters in the IHSAA meeting, it absolutely means they're recognizing what everybody listening is working on.
Yeah, that's the thing about the IHSAA, love them or hate them. I know we've had our, there's things that you want to get done and quicker. I will say that I think the IHSAA is one of the best ones in the country as far as just they have processes to everything. They aren't gonna bend their rules for one sport. They're not gonna bend their rules. And I think, honestly, you look at all of our state tournaments. football is at Lucas Oil, IU track for track and field, Gamebridge for basketball, wrestling, all those. I mean, they always have top notch events. I mean, their state's tournament events are top notch, and they're not at some local high school. They do what they can to recognize all the, even whether it's golf or the smaller sports, to at great venues and stuff. And I think that's one thing people don't understand is that the IHSA does a great job, and they're not gonna willy nilly add a sport. And
Yep.
I've said this, you don't, because that just opens up a can of worms. And then rugby and lacrosse, I know, is starting to gain some steam. Boys volleyball, obviously, they're in the emerging sports too. But if you just willy nilly add girls wrestling, or if they added boys volleyball, all the girls wrestling people are going to be freaking out, and then going that way. So it's something that I think the emerging sport thing is unique. I think, I mean, the other states, it sound like they just added it willy nilly, and I'm like, you guys are kind of opening your open that can of worms that now you're gonna get backlash from those other sports that are emerging, kind of emerging type sports like that. And so I'm glad that IHSA did that so that they could cut it down and not hear that backlash from those other sports.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I'm gonna go with you and give props to the IHSA. Like 20. Joe and I, the map, live at completely opposite sides of the state, so it's not like we run into each other. But I can remember it probably 20 years ago, emailing back and forth right when IndianaMat started, and at that time maybe that people could agree and say, the IHSA doesn't like wrestling, or maybe that's the wrong terms, that we didn't get along with people. But now, like, for sure, if you're in the IHSA building, every person in there brags about wrestling. If you talk about changing our state tournament, I know there's some tweaks this year that people weren't crazy about, but if on the bigger picture of it, if you ask that to the IHSA, who you think's the best tournament, every single person on their board is going to say wrestling is the best one. And if you don't believe that, if you look at the guys that do the medals on the medal stand, there's a bunch of ex-basketball coaches like giving the guys to our medals to our guys, and you'll say, "Oh, did you have to be at this?" No, man, you guys have the best state tournament, because they're like sports fans, and they get that. And so I try to like even meet with Robert Falcons, and he and I always talk about going to other states and watching their state finals just to get some different ideas. We'll talk about Ohio's a lot, but Ohio does it right. It's it's at Columbus, Ohio, St. Joseph's Arena, I think. But you go to some states, and like, not to be mean to the state 1 mile south of me, but like Kentucky, they work hard, but they have no idea where their state finals is going to be year to year. Like, hey, where's that this year? Well, I don't know. It's not February. Why would we know that? And they switch the high schools on them, and they don't do that to us. I know that's coming up one time, but that's not the IHSA's fault. That's a scheduling fault, and they're going to make sure it's back in there. So they do a good job of it. And the thought of girls wrestling in that arena is already there in their discussion. And they just love it. So I think that you're spot on saying that they're doing it right. Now, with that, when I say the IHSA is trying to do it right and slow, I'm not saying that when every detail comes out this summer that we won't be maybe unhappy with some rule. I personally wish we had to shave facial hair still, right? Like, I'm mad about that rule. I don't want somebody rubbing a beard like mine on some kid, but we don't like every rule, but overwhelmingly they're trying to go slow so that we don't end up one of these states that inserted girls wrestling and boys wrestling dropped by 3,000 in the same year. They're trying to watch and do the right thing, and I give them props for that.
Yeah. So let's get what is the what do you know? I guess, what does the emerging status mean? What is, like, we have these notes. Actually, this is very good. This is not Mike-like, where we have like notes at the highlights. So tell us what you know as far as what the emerging status means, because I know when I looked it up, I was like, okay, so what is this? I knew what it meant when it came out, but there wasn't much in there. So go ahead and tell us what your
Yeah, just so
It
people are
means
listening, don't know what the rule means. We printed these things. Joe and I have been working on this for a day or two. We didn't want to throw out any information that we didn't have the answer to. So sometimes on here, you're going to hear me just go, I don't know. And that's coming from the guy that was in the meeting the last two times. And, I talk to Robert often. And when I say Robert, that's our commissioner for wrestling. For those of you guys that don't know, that is a wrestling fan. He's the guy on the floor with us at all our wrestling meets. But what an emerging sport means, and if you, I sent it out to our coaches association. I think I sent it to you, Joe.
Yeah.
The PowerPoint. If anybody ever wants it, just shoot me an email. You could message me or Joe. I don't care who has it. If you want to see it. And basically there were some rules to make an emerging sports status happen. One was 20 member schools already have a program. We're definitely over the hundreds. I'd look at my PowerPoint to know we're not quite to the 150. I think maybe 117. This all off the top of my head right now had a girl on the team. One girl on the team means you supported girls wrestling. There's documentation to submitting, which demonstrates the sport's viability to grow. So that rule means, Gary, thank you. Gary was right there in both meetings with me. We gave that bro hug after it, like, dude, we did it. He's the man on all this. For you guys that know, he's our girls. When the coaches associations happen, there will be a wrestling coaches association, and then it will be umbrellaed for boys and girls, just like volleyball. It will be a volleyball coaches association with a boys and girls component, especially for wrestling, swimming, track, because our state finals likely will happen at the same time. They keep it under the same umbrella, whereas maybe softball and baseball aren't always the same coaches association because it's held separately. So anyway, we got the documentation that showed growth. So we had to have a minimum of 10 letters from athletic directors. We ended up having almost 16, I think, in there that had some great things in it. And in those letters, they had to show that they supported it. They had to show what financially they would do to support it. Some people wrote some pretty elaborate how they would do it financially. Others just wrote basically, hey, we're going to do it just like the boys. We already have the mats. We can wear the same singlets with some protection under it, and we're just going to go. Other people wrote whole other, like how they're going to pay the coaches, all that. But that's for every school. We had to put letters from national supporting organizations. So we have letters from USA Wrestling in there. We have letters from Gary Myers and his coaches, girls portion of our coach association. We have letters from Pat Culp in our IHSWCA saying how she sees this pipeline coming up. We in there had to have roster sizes, budget sizes. I mean, it took a long time to put together. Jake O'Neill started it before the emerging sports status came about. He wrote it specifically for sanctioning it, which was a whole nother group of rules. So then I took Jake's presentation, made it into the emerging sport. We have to prove that we're going to use IHSAA rules. So questions later on down the road here tonight, like, well, will girls be able to do this? Will the guys be able to do this? It has to follow IHSAA rules. And I'm off the top of my head, that's pretty much it. We had to use other states' comparisons. We used Missouri a lot because at the time we started presenting this, Missouri was the one that just picked it up over a year ago. And Missouri, in the instant that it picked up girls wrestling, regular wrestling girls to girls wrestling sanction status, and it jumped 827 girls, something like that, in the very first year. And now they're thriving. If you talk to any coach, like Marty Hauk, he's one of their coaches. He's their coach association president down there. He could tell you how it looks just like the boys thing, and that's boys state tournament. And that was one of the things I said to last presentation. I remember my final line in the presentation was, hey guys, this is going to happen. Don't let Indiana be last. and a bunch of people kind of laughed like, ooh, that was a jab. But I thought it was fitting. But I was telling him how, like with Gary Myers' tournament that he started, it was his baby. This year at the girls' tournament, if you were watching the blood round or the ticket round, whatever you guys want to call it, it was just like watching the semi-state for the boys. And you watched, you know, because it's big enough now. Like the competition in the blood round was not just you're advancing to state. You had to earn your way to state. And there was girls crying because they won, and there was girls crying because they lost. And to me, that was one of my biggest like emotional changes and turns. And we got to make this happen now. And you know, I told that story in the room, and I think people appreciate it. And a few ADs raised their hand and said, "Yeah, I was there. I saw that." And at the end of the presentation, it was kind of funny, comical to me. Like, does anybody have any questions? And everybody just smiled and sat there. There wasn't one question. And then an hour later, Joe, you might have called or texted me first before I even knew it. I was driving home 2.5 hours to Jeffersonville, and by the time I got home, it had passed. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? I thought it'd take another month. So that's what an emerging sports status is.
Well, I think that, I mean, it sounded like that was, I mean, one of the things I've heard from you and some other people that, you know, they kind of know the votes beforehand because they had a video ready, and then, you know, with the president or the whatever they call him, they had a video and everything. I'm like, they had this ready, they had this plan, they had a press release ready. I'm sorry, but you don't just rip together a press release like that. But like you said, I mean, you've been in a few of those meetings, you kind of know whether it's wrestling or whatever, the votes. If you ever look at the minutes, and Dane and I study these minutes, and we'll get into something, you know, a little bit, but it's either 19-0 or 0-19. Rarely do you even have an 18-1. You know, they all vote in the same way, and that's kind of, they kind of make their know what they're going to vote on and how they're going to vote.
It's funny. Is Dane on here?
Sometimes he sneaks on.
Dane called me. I talked to Dane almost right after I talked to you yesterday or whatever it is, and he had the exact same quote. And I was like, oh, they must talk a lot, because it was verbatim.
Yeah, we text each other whenever the minutes come out, because, you know, you got to see who got on the who the wrestling place louder is, who didn't do their
the naughty list.
Yeah, yes. But also just kind of the things that go on. And, you know, it's interesting after we'll go on when we talk about the travel rule thing, kind of keeping an eye on how things go. And the travel rule thing is just like, it hasn't gone how it usually goes. So, which could be good or bad, but, you know, I guess some questions. The biggest question is, what does this mean now that we are saying, you know, we're emerging sport? I mean, the biggest question everyone has: do girls have to wrestle? Do girls have to wrestle only girls now, or will they be able to wrestle boys?
All right, so I'm gonna make sure I try to answer this as I don't know, not perfect, but the best I can. So the answer that nobody's going to like right now, and I just got to be 100% honest, we got named emerging. We showed how we would like wrestling to look if we made it happen as a coaches association. And of course, that isn't always going to pick it or settle it. And so I want an example. If Danny Struck had his way, but as coaches association president, I honestly never ever go into the IHSAA building I look at our surveys. When we did it, we had 270 plus coaches, schools represented in our survey, and I push the agenda how our coaches vote. So now if something on there was immoral or something, I'd be like, no, but man, we got good coaches. So that's how I go, because Danny Struck would have said, let's make it girls freestyle and do it in the spring. That's what I would have said. We were almost exactly 50-50 on that question. So the IHSAA wants our survey when we go in there. So a couple questions I don't know 100% the answer to are: when it's sanctioned, will they be able to wrestle boys? When it's sanctioned, they will not be able to wrestle boys. As an emerging sport, they're going to have another meeting this summer at what they call their leadership retreat, and they will. They've all went back. They've told all their schools, "Hey, wrestling's an emerging sport status," and they're going to get the opinion of the people, their people, and they're going to come back to them. That's the same thing with like the mileage rule. Like, even though something happened in the minutes and yep, we're an emerging sport, that didn't mean they wrote all the rules down. So, will boys wrestle girls in emerging sport status? I'm not going to say either way how I feel about it. This summer they're going to pick. I will say, when sanctioned, boys will not wrestle girls. And that's not even an IHSA decision. That's an NFHS rule. And to follow the NFHS and be a good school in good standing, a state in good standing, we got to follow that. So in all these states you see it's sanctioned, they're not wrestling boys. It's not even, maybe somebody can find the example that I'm wrong on, but that's life, right? We can always find the example somebody's wrong on. The overwhelming majority and the intent is to have two standalone sports, like boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer, boys and girls wrestling. Yeah. I hope that. I'm nervous of answering that.
No, that's, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, we don't have all the answers, but when we have them, we'll get them out. And, obviously, unfortunately, it's not going to be I think it's a late June meeting is what I think I saw there. So we're not going to have any answers till June. And I mean, we were talking offline, I mean, if it's girls versus girls only, there's going to be a lot of scheduling and stuff that coaches are going to have to figure out a little bit more. They're not going to have as much time to figure it out as they would if we know now, but it'll get done, I'm sure. So whatever it is.
Man, if you ever, oh, sorry. I apologize, Joe. I know people are going to be upset about the scheduling. People are going to be upset about, I think everybody hates change. At my school, I've had, 8 athletic directors in 20 years, and I'm on my 6th, 7th football coach in 10. I don't know how to do things not changing. So for everybody, life is kind of different. But this summer, I was thinking about girls this past summer, and we just presented this for my first time as president. And after it, I somehow picked up Pat Summitt's book, the girls basketball coach from Tennessee, and her talked about how hard it was for her to find places to play basketball because she was a girl growing up in the 60s, and how people ridiculed her and how she didn't know if she wanted to play again. And it talked about how separating girls basketball was such a thing, right? It was a big deal. People threw fits. They thought it would ruin one of the sports. And man, tonight they were replaying not to eat before this, and they're replaying the girls' national championship on ESPNU. They weren't replaying the boys' national championship. They were playing the girls' national championship. And I think people just got to be aware of, I know we want to wrestle boys, but if they say we're going to wrestle girls, I mean, look what happened to girls basketball. It's they're on ESPNU now, and there are positives that come sometimes from not getting what we want. So I'm just personally going to go roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what will it take to get to full status? I know the IHSA says 50%, and 50% of the total. There's just over 400 schools. So that would be 200 schools, or is it 50% of the schools of wrestling, which is 310-ish, 300. So it's, you're talking about a difference of about 50 schools, which getting to 200 is almost double on what we had. Getting to 150 seems a little more feasible in a shorter period of time.
So when I say forums, I really mean Facebook, right? I'm reading comments on Facebook. So I've seen people having all those questions on what they're going to do, and it is the number of schools that have wrestling. We have to hit 50% of that. So it's not the actual. Now this is per. A lot of times I try to make sure I don't get like the IHSA in trouble or anything, but this actual line is copy and pasted from Robert, and it says 150 schools. And I don't think he means exactly that, because wrestling has 316, 317. So but he's not saying 200 plus, right? In there. He had questions for me tonight. So he said 150 schools with 40 schools in each of the 3 of the IHSA districts. And I think that's a big deal. I have a map in front of me, but like what I'm going to next when we present this to be sanctioned is plotting on a map, right? Putting on my dots. I don't know if Indianapolis, I'm making this up, was a district that 100 of the Indianapolis district. Like we got to have 40 in each one. So like Joe was saying, like they do follow the rules to the best that they can in a group of people interpreting them, and 40 kind of a hard number. So when we go back in to do that, I'm looking for the number of schools that have boys wrestling and call it a sport at their school, cut that number, so roughly 150 or 158, and then making sure you're in each district. And as long as we're still good standing with the emerging sport rule, we should be good for it.
Okay, so that's, I mean, I like being able to get to 350 a lot easier than 200, at least in a quicker manner, personally.
So, and we're not that far. We're not that far.
Yeah.
To me, a girl says, "Oh man," so I remember I don't know everybody's name in the room. It's a big room, right? It's like a wrestling room. It's a big old table, and you just stand in the middle and kind of turn and talk. And I do know a AD last time kept standing up. Look at that map. There's nobody in my area. Other people were like in the room because, to each his own opinion. They were like, oh man, we'll have dual meets. Look at this map. I'm going to have 10 dual meets already set up. And this 180, I don't have one on here because she had already done her map, this AD. And so, but positively, she said, but you know what? That's how girls basketball was too. We had to travel to find a team. So we're all going to look at that map and not see somebody down the road. And I think as coaches, if we all are for this, which 97% of the coaches out of the 272 polled voted we were for it, we got to find a way to get girls, or you got to tell them, maybe the same school corporation. I got 3 high schools in my school corporation. I send an all email to their teachers and say, hey, girls wrestling is a thing. And if I want my team to grow, I got to make sure those other 2 teams field girls wrestling teams. So maybe it is my job. Teams. I always think as coaches, we always hate the other team. Oh my God, I hate that other team. And I'm not going to say other teams we hate, but man, we hate them. But if we could walk across and go, hey, how could I help you? Oh, you need to help getting a couple girls out, man. And I think we all started coaching wrestling for that reason, to help kids. So in this girls fight, I hope we all help each other push that 150 with the 40 in each district.
Yeah, no, that's, it's not going to, once I think the IHSAA giving a stamp of approval is huge. And it kind of, like you said earlier, now it says, okay, hey, they're behind us. We're not where they want to be for full sanctioning, but it's coming, and it kind of is going to help nudge it. I'm sure it's same with boys volleyball, how it's going to be like, okay, now it's something real. So we can start, doing more for it. So, I guess since you've done a lot of research and obviously talked to other states and stuff, how do other states do the girls wrestling? I know California and Texas have had it for a while.
Yeah.
And stuff. What, as far as,
so,
like you said, none of them that I know also, and it really didn't even, that question never came up until it started becoming close to being sanctioned of, girls wrestling the boys. But I mean, how have you, like, some of the examples I know you've talked to?
So I saw one question. I'm learning how to do this, right?
Yeah.
All the
Yes.
these I had to read them myself when I'm watching the show. I usually I don't know that I've ever commented. I try to stay quiet because as president, I get a lot of emails from you guys, so I appreciate it. But on here, I don't ever want to get caught off guard. So somebody on there, Nick Krause. Nick Krause said 40 in each district. I mean, each semi-state IHSAA what district. They literally have like a district line. If you could map that, like if you go to your athletic director's office and say, could I have an IHSAA map? It has a map of all the schools on it, and it has a line of what they call their districts. So they can have little district meetings and district votes, and it makes it not so massive. Thinking of Indiana as massive, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to control the whole thing, right, from the headquarters. So they got districts, and it would be 40 per district, which is going to be easier to get than semi-states, right, because that's 40, 40, 40 instead of 40, 40, 40. But girls wrestling, how did it grow? If a number of coaches have already opened my PowerPoint, but it has a breakdown of last year's growth in numbers. And then this year, I was looking at this year's growth in numbers, and I didn't add it to the PowerPoint only because when we went up there, I walked in, I told Gary Myers, like, this is going to pass. Like, this is going to pass. And Robert Falcons goes, you got 2 minutes or less. Don't tell any jokes. And I was like, damn it. I always tell jokes. So I didn't know how to start it, so I still made a joke. So with my joke, I was out in under 2 minutes. Gary was probably out in under his 2 minutes. And we didn't get to show the IHSAA the chart of what all these other states did. Every single state that added girls wrestling grew. So that's one thing we know what's going to happen with girls wrestling. In the other states, the word emerging sports status is kind of unique to Indiana. I won't say we're the only one, but it definitely lit off the NCAA emerging sports status. There we go. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's
Coach
basically
Krause.
there's 3 districts in northern. I'd have to zoom in to tell you exactly where that northern line is, but that goes. So there's the northern district, Fort Wayne. I mean, it's just straight across, and then.
So what I haven't done with that map, which will be the next thing I do before another presentation, which I got some time now, right? Emerging sports status buys us time. Like, I'm in Southern Indiana. I can tell you right now, there's probably not 40. There's hardly 40 schools in Southern Indiana. I mean,
Yeah, 40 schools total.
I mean, I know Joe. I read Joe's posts. I know he thinks nobody lives in Southern Indiana, and I kind of agree. Like, if I go out my front door out here, I can see Louisville. I tell people Louisville, except for Indiana people. I mean, where else in the country I say Louisville. So. Back to girls wrestling, to find that 40 in each section is going to be, like, the Indianapolis area is going to be fairly easy. Almost every school in Indianapolis already. The region has quite a few, right? It's just densely populated, chances are more. Southern Indiana, like, I'll have to be grabbing my guys down here and saying, hey, let's grow it. But back to the girls' growth. In other states, what do they do? If they're following NFHS rules to the T, any exception out there, but if they're following the rules, they cannot wrestle boys. Now, I can't say that nobody ever has wrestled a boy in a dual meet, but that's probably because their HSAA or their MHSAA or their CHSAA is not standing over it saying no. I mean, I know I'd be breaking my rules in Jeffersonville if I had a boy wrestle a girl once it's sanctioned. But I think people break rules. I'm not saying it's right. So in their state tournament, it's not happening. That's why, years back, I think Kayla Hutchison in Alaska, to my knowledge, was the first ever girl in a boys' state to win a state title. And you don't hear of that anymore, not because girls wrestling has gotten worse, but because girls wrestling grew and they're not wrestling in the boys tournament. So that's why it's such an anomaly. You don't see it much anymore. I mean, the Carolinas just sanctioned it, right? We heard of a state champ over there not too long ago.
Yeah.
But you're not going to they're having it each. And I beg people that might end up listening that think like, oh man, that's going to lower the number of girls wrestling. Well, that one girl, yeah, man, she was a bad wrestler that won that boys state title. But now it's how many people are going to do that. So, we got to look at big picture for that. That growth of getting. We all love to say we love wrestling. Like, I love wrestling. Why are you in this sport? I love wrestling. WRASSLIN, wrestling. And but we really love kids, and what we're trying to do is double the population of the amount of wrestling that people get. So when we keep them, boys and girls, together, that's the whole pitch. The IHSAA is we're trying to double the population of wrestling, not necessarily we're trying to raise the level of wrestling. I think that's the job of the coach.
Yeah. No, and once you get more people, and I know a lot of people that have seen the girls wrestling as it's evolved over the 6 or 7 years, that they've said that it used to just be a headlock fest, and now the technique is coming along real fast, which is kind of cool to see. And even I've watched some of the championships, and you can kind of tell that the level of the wrestling. Obviously, you have Curl and Ocampo wrestled in the finals this year, which is a real high level match, and they're both gonna be contending this weekend actually to make some world teams. So that's kind of neat to see. So all that.
I tell you saying that, like, I've been lucky in my life. I think I've been out to watch at the Olympic Training Center more times than I've won matches in my life. So if that says anything, but like I think I have a good brain. I mean, I'm not smarter than anybody, but I work hard. When I go to the Olympic Training Center and get to watch practices, the technique that the girls have is amazing. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, girls and guys' brains work a little different. I mean, thank God. That's why I love the woman I love, right? Her brain works different than mine. If my brains work the way mine did. So when I'm watching their technique, some of the attention to detail is I'm generalizing, but if you read a psychology book, it's there. The attention to detail, the move, or discussing of the sport. And I think what we're going to find is a lot of those girls, like, we think that they're getting better in the boys' room, but when you put some like brains, you end up finding out that a lot of us guys are going to learn the technique from them. If you walk into a room, a Terry Steiner coached room, pushing it, the level of the wrestling in the room has got so good that Terry Steiner's just letting it go, right? Like, the guys are watching and learning, and that only happens in an environment.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And that's, it's going to keep getting better. And obviously there's going to be more focus on that. Obviously you can tell the coaches that are putting the time into the girls and their techniques are getting better. There's a lot of events that they can go to. Obviously this weekend in Fort Worth, real big event, got quite a few girls going also. So, any other, I guess, girls stuff, right now? Right now we're looking. It's going to be folk style. It's going to be in the winter. Obviously, once it's sanctioned, once we get more, we're going to get more information in June, late June, maybe early July. Yep. Depends on when the minutes and all that stuff's released. But we're going to get.
You got a promise from both me and Joe, right? Like, I was texting him, hey, I got a meeting coming up, because I knew he'd be interested in that. And the thing is, I didn't even know I had this meeting. I see Jason Cook on here. He's our vice president, and Jake O'Neill was our former president. And Jake starts, being like, "Hey man, why am I out of the loop?" And I'm like, I wasn't in the loop. They literally called me on Friday and said, be here Monday for this meeting. And I think there was a little bit of, well, why not me? And I'm like, man, let's not worry about it. Let's just go. So I took off school, drove up there, walked into a 2-minute meeting. I left school at lunch and was back at school for practice. And that's with 5 hours of driving. And girls wrestling became a thing. So what I'm saying is I'm going to text Coach Caprino here as soon as we know anything else. If you're at our coaching Friday, it's going to be verbatim what Joe and I just talked about tonight. And the second we know more, which is the big question I think right now, will boys wrestle girls? I'm just going to say opinion. I'm 50-50 because I won't be surprised if we don't, because that is eventually what will happen. They're going to rip the Band-Aid off, and it's 2 separate sports. I wouldn't be surprised if we do, because one of the quotes they keep saying to us is keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Well, keep doing what we're doing as boys versus girls, but that doesn't support the rules. So it's a completely 50-50 for me. And I want to reiterate, if you're watching this late, then what happened? But the IHSAA saying that this is an emerging sport means they want it to happen. It means they are advertising it now. It means they just sent a press release to the Indianapolis Star saying, hey, girls, start wrestling. And having to double our numbers is massive.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the numbers are going to be next year now that yeah, I mean, like you said, there are some ADs that were kind of waffling on it. Oh no, and what? And I know we talked to the Carroll AD a little bit. What's? And we had a girl wrestling in middle school, and she was a freshman this year. So it's like, it's coming. It's coming. There's going to be we're going to have discussions. It's you can't stop it. I mean, honestly, it's not gonna. You can't stop it. It's coming. How are you gonna? You want to get ahead of it before you are behind. Trying to keep your head above water. And I know there's been a lot of people that have done a real good job with that. So,
I get there's some people that don't want it to happen still, but it's going to happen. It's kind of I don't know, just arguing gravity, right? It's going to happen too. It's making equal be equal, and I can't lie. When I was young, I didn't think it should happen. I was a 20-year-old coach, and I thought, I will never have a girl on my team. I'm 45 now. My perceptions, thank God, have changed in life. You have a girl on your team that you watch her cry because she didn't get to do what the guys did, and you start loving that human being, and you're like, man, that person deserves this. And then you come all the way, like me, 25 years later, and you watch a girl cry because she worked the last few years, and girls wrestling got big enough that ticket round match was huge. You have to have this happen for that kid. It's not a matter of if you win or not. And I know, I think the big thing coaches need to make sure they're starting to say is not that they don't want girls wrestling to happen. It's I get it. How am I going to handle both coaching boys and girls basketball coach to coach boys and girls? I hope coaches start using the language of, and who am I going to go recruit to coach it if you can't handle it on your own? I know I'm so excited about it. I'm going to try to do both, but there'll be a day, thankfully, that it's so big that whether I want to coach both or not, I can't. We're having full, and heck, girls, everybody says in Indiana, you got multiple gyms. Look at this place with 6 gyms. You think they had 6 gyms in the 60s before they had girls basketball? I'm going to argue that they like the Newcastle field house with one little basketball court at the bottom without movable seating, right? And nobody else was on that gym. They had to go create another one when they got girls basketball. Seymour, Indiana, one of the top 10 largest gyms in the state, or in the nation. Maybe it's the largest high school gym in the nation. I forget. Newcastle's a field house and it's a gym, something screwy like that. They had to go. It was the largest one in the country, and they had to go build one when they started girls basketball. There's going to be a day when we all have, Brownsburg size or Jennings County size wrestling rooms because of the need to build these facilities. And I think that's something coaches should get excited about. Like, you've been wanting a new wrestling room and they didn't know if it was there. Now you have the need, and they did it for girls basketball 50 years ago, 60 years ago. It's going to happen for wrestling.
Yeah, that's something that you don't think about as a coach, and you try to. Now you have a little bit of leverage to say, hey, we need a bigger wrestling room. We can't just have that one and a half mats. We need 2 full mats, and you can use that as a good point of getting a bigger wrestling room. So some other things I guess we'll go over, and some things that since you're on here, we'll talk about. We do have that proposal link. I think you're gonna have to share it. I have to double check
on here.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll talk after, and I'll put it on like the show notes. I think it's only the people that you share it to. You have to make it kind of public, but that can go happen later. But
yeah, just so people know on that, like, if I was ever closed-lipped with the proposal, this was the first time, I've been president. Proposal years, you usually propose on the second year of your presidency, and that's across the board in every sport. That's why realignments happen on certain years. That's why class sports in different sports happen in certain years. They brought us in a non-proposal year to do girls, which is also exciting, right? Because I think how they did it, it was like, well, it's not a sport yet, so you can propose it on any year. So they brought us in 2 years in a row in that, and actually asked us to come in on that. So I thought that was a big deal. And the reason I'm saying that is for people that have thought I was closed-lipped about our proposal, is that since I had never done it, I'd never proposed an emerging sport before. I didn't want to share it because I didn't know if Robert Falcons would like people writing him, hey, I read this, hey, I read this. So I do have permission from him to share it with people, so if they want to show somebody, that is IHSA approved to show.
Yeah, so the presentations, like, I guess, what goes into a presentation as far as, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and I know it's not like you and Jason Cook just have these half-brain ideas and just say, hey, let's propose that Hobart host the state tournament, state finals every year because that's where I'm from, and that's what it, no one.
Jason Cook generally only says, let's propose, let's rage. Somehow that's the only thing he wants to do is rage. I don't know what raging is. Maybe we need to do it in Southern Indiana. Maybe that would grow the population. Maybe raging grows the population. Jason, I'm actually meeting with Jason next Thursday to tell him how that goes. There's only been 3 people that were conned into doing this twice. So the first time you're a president, man, it is like you don't know what you're doing. You go into this meeting one time ever when you're president. It's really kind of silly, and that's why I said, hey, I'd like to be president again if it comes up. Greg Ratliff's talked about, like, a number of our guys, even though we're getting older, we need some younger blood. That's why we went after asking Jason if he'd run for it. So because you go in there and you don't know what you're doing, and I present a document. You got to have all these things, like, here's all the bylaws. Basically this is what a proposal looks like. They write the bylaws, and then you have to make sure everyone's covered, and if you don't cover it, they ain't doing it. And even if you cover it, they might vote no. And then somebody might say to you, like, well, what on here is really important to you? You guys, your coaches pick 7 things. And when I ask our population what they want, I just go in with it. So we do a survey. A survey always happens. We kind of take over the year or two the most asked questions or most suggested things to us, and we put it in a survey, and we say, what do you guys want? And we take that survey and we go to the IHSAA and we have like a little meeting, and it's not a presentation yet. It's the non-presentation year, and you kind of just discuss. And if the IHSA is like, oh man, that's dumb, we're not doing it. Their opinion, dumb, not ours, right? We're like, okay, we're going to pass. And like you said, the rules, like it'll be 19-0 or 0-19 on the voting. If you're talking to the right person, like all politics, I'm not trying to pick on that. I should say like all politics, most laws are done landslided, right? Like maybe questions of morality on laws aren't, but like, because everybody's heartfelt, but like just rules. A lot of time, like in our state government, I used to be a government teacher, like it's a big landslide on win or losing. So you know when you go in what's going to win or lose, ding, 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 wrestlebacks. Like they'll say, you come in with wrestlebacks, we're not listening to one other thing. And then some later, like, why didn't you ask for wrestlebacks? And I was like, I was told they wouldn't let me into the meeting. Like they're all going to be turned off, right? You got to, Joe and I were talking the other day about like, man, you got to be friends with people. You got to talk about things they want to hear. So I could go back over past presentations. I'm kind of on the top of my head. I'm like, what have I presented in the past? But you get a feel for them before you go in. A lot of times when you go in there, if you have too many things, they're going to say, really, what do you want to pass? What's one thing you want to pass? And it can't be something that's in the NFHS rules. Like we presented rest time between matches the last time. It's at NFHS rules, but we did it anyway because like, you know, that 45-minute rule, like I know at my tournaments, we're just sitting there sometimes. And they say to us in that meeting, they'll deny it, but then they'll say, hey, you, Mr. Falcons, are you still on the NFHS board? Yeah. Could you bring up in their rule change committee? And if they change it, then we can change it. So like sometimes it's years on changing a rule, more than once, because they might have to go present it to somebody else. You know, if we said we want to not wear headgear, that's not something that the IHSA can change. The tournament, how we run our tournament, we can suggest all that to them. All the things that you wonder about wrestling that are not in the rule book, we can kind of present, right? The sectional is not, the regionals are not in your rule book. How many mats you're allowed to have at a tournament, how big the tournament can be, how many days in a row you can have a tournament, like those are not in the rule book. How many matches you can have are not in the rule book. Those are all presentable things to the IHSAA. And they do listen to us, and we get every other year to do it. And this is not a presentation year, but if you were out there and wanting to, like, man, you're just heartfelt about something, start sending that email now. And I'll put it on my list. Like I literally have a document on my desk that just says things people have said to me about IHSAA wrestling. When that comes around, we'll be talking about what we want to present.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, it's something that not very many people get to experience, and it feels weird that like you get to do it one time, and then you know the first time you go ask a girl out, and that's the only last time you can ask a girl out. It's like, man, I would have done this differently. I'd have said this. I'd have done, you know, it's one of those things that
it's just like asking girls out. They say no to the majority of the things you.
Yeah, it's and you only get one time to do it because usually you're only present at one time. So you're like, and then you look back like, man, I would have said this. I would have done this, and I always like wondered, you know, as far as the Coaches Association, like you almost need to do that more a couple of times so you get your feet wet a little bit. Now I know how to talk to these people instead of one and done. And well, I gave it a try.
Yeah.
So
it's huge. Like, you know, the first, so I was president, then vice president, then president, and vice president, and president. So like 8 years of going into presentations. And I learned real early in there, like going out to eat with Robert Falcons was like a must. One, he's a cool dude. Like if you ever get to meet Robert, he's just a good dude that likes kids and likes what coaches do. So like going out to eat with him is fun. But during that time, man, like I'm hearing what he would like to see with wrestling, and I'm going, oh, how could we adapt that? Instead of me going, oh, he hates this about wrestling. you learn his buttons. I won't say what his buttons are right here, but like I know which one that we just can't go after, and that if I put that on the presentation, the very next one's going to fail. And that's not because Robert's bad or anything. Like, that's human nature. If you turn me off right off the bat, asking a person out on a date, you turn them off or down right off the bat, it's over. So if it runs again or wants to become, especially if there's some young guys on there, Maggart, man, you should maybe, you and Jason Cook could rage and we could get together.
I don't think the IHSAA board could handle that. I don't know if they could understand Maggart. Maggart would need to bring a translator.
They speak different in Jimtown. There's a distinct line there between Jimtown and Penn. I bet they all agree. But we get some young guys on there and they see how to do it. So like, I'm not trying to offend you. We're considered old coaches now. Yeah. Like the average coach in Indiana right now across the board, like I'm not saying in wrestling, across the board is 3 or less years in coaching. And I know I'm in 25th year. So I hope these young guys watch and stay in it, because we need, like, if you really want to make a difference, stay in, like, presenting again. I knew when I went into this meeting whether they were going to vote yes or not. Now, I don't know if I told Joe or who I told, but like I was like, they're voting yes. I don't know that they're, I can't print that in print yet, but they're voting yes, because if you are around me ever, I seem super scatterbrained because I got a million things going. I know when I go into that presentation that they've had, I won't name sports, 10 other crappy presentations that were like handwritten or screenshots that somebody threw up there. And they're always like, because of Jake and because of Ratliff and people that went in there before me, they're like, man, wrestling always comes in prepared. And I bet you, trying to stigmatize wrestling, but across the country, that's not always the case. And when IHSAA is talking to some other state, they're like, man, our wrestling coaches come in and they don't, they don't know what they want to ask. Like, I know like that. And that's why, but I don't know that I knew that the first time. I don't know that I had pictures. I don't know that I had graphs. And it's good to go in a second time, I'm sure you've revamped IndianaMat a few times over the years, right? You see what I mean? And if Jason, if people, you young guys, Jason's going to be done with this position in 3 years, and somebody else is going to have to go do what Jason Cook is doing. So I'm just giving a big plug here to, man, if you want to make a difference, like, I'm going to coach for 20 more years or 1 more year. At this point, I don't know, right? That's how.
Yeah. So, other things that I know, one of the proposals, and I know one of the hot topics, the travel rule. That one's been pretty interesting. I know you've kind of talked and you've heard some things and stuff. I just go over the kind of what I've seen in the minutes is in 2019, the Pocket Athletic Conference, which is Tell City, Pike Central, Heritage Hills, Forest Park, North Posey, South Ridge. So a bunch of really small schools in southwest Indiana proposed just abolishing the rule. And I knew I was like, man, that'd get, if I had known, I didn't see the proposals or anything beforehand, I'm like, that'd be axed right away. But it was tabled, which is very, 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 very rare for a proposal to be tabled. Came back up this week and it failed, but they were asked to rewrite it, which is another. I can say I've never seen that in the minutes. Dane can probably comment on whether he has seen that also, but I was like, okay, it failed, but they're like, rewrite it and bring it back to the June meeting. So, I guess, what do you know about it? And I guess, what can you say? Because that's something that you don't see. That the proposal was that there's no, you can try, there's still a 300-mile limit, but then the schools that can come, into that event don't have any restrictions. So you can go to So you could go to Ironman, you could go to uh, Cheesehead and things like that, as long as it's within 300 miles of any Indiana border. So I guess, what do you know about, I guess, this process? Have you seen this before?
Yeah, so we actually have made that presentation, and it's funny that you bring it up again, because when I called you Monday or Friday, I don't know, when we talked the first time recently, you asked about it, and I think I wrote back, oh, they're never going to change that. Like, they're never going to change that, because Robert, I love Robert, so I'll do that out of like friendship. I'll say, hey, Robert, I got an idea. And no, 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 no. And there might even be, if anybody knows Robert, you might even hear a cuss word in there too. Oh, I'm really not asking it. So we presented that, and a lot of times when he and I went out to eat, I'm like, man, you liked it when I said it there. And he's like, well, yeah, when you explain it, it makes sense to me. But I know that whole room isn't going to do it. So him liking it is 19 people liking it. Yeah. Girls wrestling, he's liked it since day one, right? But you got to get 19 or whatever people in the room to like it. So girl on the rule, I do want to add one more thing on the rule, because I read all these people writing on things about the rule, and as a teacher that is kind of like a book, and like, oh man, read the rule. You're on here arguing. You're arguing and you don't even make any sense because you never read the rule. Like, they're naming locations where they can wrestle, but as Joe and I have been talking all week this week, it means from the border of your state. Now that's even more confusing. It's crazy. So like Jeffersonville, Indiana, if I wanted to go north to a tournament, if you don't know where Jeffersonville is, I can see the Ohio River. I go to the northern, I go to Penn, I go to South Bend, and then I got 300 miles. So I can go 5 miles. Crazy. That's why one of the reasons people don't like the rule, but when you're arguing that rule, you have to understand the rule to go in and present it. So what I'll say about the rule is that they are hearing why, right? When rules are made, sometimes the landscape of sports is different. Baseball, 50 years ago, travel ball. Why would you want to play somebody from a different town? Well, now you're having trouble getting high school baseball players to play for their high school team, because they know if they don't, they can travel to Florida for games and weekend tournaments, and their parents have the money to do it. So the IHSAA does try to keep up with the times, but not letting it jump the way, for lack of a better word, AAU changes, right? Like club things. Everybody knows I'm a huge USA wrestling guy, but like clubs can change faster. They're there to do what we want. I don't like it. I start my own club. I'm starting my own club and doing what I want. But if you're in the IHSAA, you got to go with them, and they change slower because of that, and they watch things. And all I know is that the fact that they tabled it means something will change, but we can't say what. So it's like super exciting. We're going to find out if girls wrestling or wrestling boys in June, July, and we're going to find out what the change is to that 300-mile radius rule. And I'm going to put my fake money down right now and say that some of us will like the changes, and some of us will go, well, that's wrong. And then we'll all shrug and move forward because they just made the change.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's one of those ones that everyone wants. I mean, I'd love to see some of the, I'd love to see Crown Point and Brownsburg and some of those other, really good teams in the past wrestle at Ironman and Cheesehead and the Dvorak, which is like an Al Smith on steroids in Illinois. But it's one of those things. It's like, there's a lot of I know the reasoning, and I posted it. That there's enough competition in that 300-mile range for everyone to get, but at the same time, it'd be good if they can change it. Hopefully they do, and we can see some of those guys at those events. So, and it'd be huge national news for us if we were able to. I know I don't know if teams would be able to get into the bigger events, late in June, but I'm sure a couple of phone calls wouldn't hurt anything. So,
I think that they realize like some of the. I don't know that anybody can write a rule and write it without the loopholes that people are going to find perfect on the first try. I mean, look at our Constitution. And I mean, our real Constitution, not the wrestling Constitution. But so when they made the rule and then somebody said, well, hey, we could meet you halfway. And they're like, well, that's not the way the rule's written. Oh, so like there's some changes. Some rules are really old. Now, I see like Greg Ratliff on here. They're not quite as old as Greg Ratliff. And if he doesn't know, I think Greg Ratliff's older than both of us. His wife's actually watching, so I'm making sure she knows Greg's older than me and Joe are.
Nice. So yeah. What do you know? I know one of the other things I know it's been discussed and there've been meetings and what do you know about the realignment?
Oh man,
I know that's I know last year there was a hot topic, and then I'm like, waiting for the minutes. I'm like, did anything happen with this? And then obviously looking at the minutes, like, and they just did the basketball, baseball, team sports. It looked like this past week. What do you know about what is this?
Whenever I was reaching out to you on all this stuff, and then on here there was that certain little thing like, man, Joe hadn't always been happy with the Coach Association. What if I'm on here just to say something dumb we can keep in my mouth? And it's going to be the one, right? Everybody's going to go with Danny Struck said this. So, so on realignment, here's how realignment works. If you look at the rules, it's a loose rule. It's really silly. It says every 2 to 4 years there will be realignment. And because people are human, Robert Falcons will call me and say, hey, time for realignment. I'm like, dude, we just did that 2 years ago. Yeah, you do it every 2 years. And then he'll call me again in 4 years and say, hey, time for realignment. I'm like, we waited 4 years. Yeah, it says every 2 to 4. So it's every 2 to 4. It's loose like that is like, I mean, the world doesn't change that fast. Populations don't change that fast. So forcing a realignment every 2 years, if it's not broke, is silly. But if something does break, it allows them the grace period. So, like, I'm going to give huge compliments to, like, Brownsburg and Avon. Like, a while back, like, man, I didn't know where Brownsburg was. Was it? What did Brownsburg just become a school like 10 years ago? I didn't know where it was, and I taught in Greencastle, Indiana. And I was like, man, I don't want to go to Brownsburg. This Greencastle's a mecca, not that thing. I mean, it's huge, it's beautiful, the school's awesome, and people are like, man, we got to have a realignment. And there's little pockets of the state around there that happens in their schools, or the school district changes, right? Like a school drops or consolidates 3 high schools. So you can't just say we're not going to realign, even though 3 high schools don't exist anymore. In Jeffersonville, Indiana, when I started coaching, there was 4 schools in our county that have it. And I think 4 schools have now started wrestling in the last 2 years. So we have 9 or 10 schools in Clark County that wrestle. So how does realignment or alignment work? We did an alignment meeting, and the IHSAA, and that was a year ago. We did one 2 years before that. So I thought it was pretty quick together, but that's what they wanted to do. My sectional is an example. If we have 9 schools in one county, we would have been the largest by school sectional in the entire state, not population. I'm not saying we would have had because we're probably the lowest, but you still have to count for the schools. There's forfeits in there. So we added 4 schools in our county. We had to realign some other schools like Muncie areas, consolidated some schools. I think South Bend area consolidated some schools. Yeah. And then over in the region, a couple did. So you couldn't wait 4 years. which I thought the rule was 4, 4, 4. Boom, they bring us in on a 2-year one that we realign. Accidentally, I didn't ever let it leak. Somebody let it leak what the realignments were. You're getting all those phone calls. And then the NFHS say we're going to make new weight classes. And the coach associations say we're going to add girls wrestling. And suddenly the IHSAA and their defense is going, man, that's a lot of changes in wrestling that we got to figure out. Who can host a boys and a girls sectional at the same time? Will we do that? How many weight classes are we going to adopt? Which I'm telling you right now, the IHSAA is all for adopting 14 or more. They don't want to drop it. But then when you add girls, how many weight classes are you going to have? Because if, however we structure it, are you going to put them on the same gym? Or are you going to put 14 and 14? Or are you going to put 14 and 6? Which brings up a great question Joe asked in our paper. An implication on girls wrestling? No, there's not. For lack of better explanation, Title IX is almost a college rule. It trickles into high school, but it's not purposefully set up to make a gender fail. So it does not say that if boys wrestling has 14 boys, that girls wrestling has to have 14 boys. It could be 14 and 6. And that's why the NFHS, I know this is a long realignment question. If they want us to do something that the IHSAA doesn't think we can support, they didn't want to realign everything suddenly. So no, there will be no realignment for next year, even though some people read that it will happen. And it will be at least one more year before that meeting takes place. And based on past practice, if we have a realignment meeting next summer, they give one full year for you to adjust your schedule. So I kind of always thought once Christmas hit, I knew there was no realignment happening because the IHSAA tries hard to give everyone a year on their schedule. On this girls thing, they're like saying, here's Christmas, dude, right now. Christmas in the spring, have girls wrestling. So they're not giving us a year on it. But no realignment for this next fall. It might happen next spring. It is a secret meeting. And the reason I say that is not because they're trying to hide anything, but so many people have their own agenda. When you go into a meeting, it's almost startling. I mean, let's use a different sport for an example. Could you imagine a football coach coming in? I'm pretending football coaches can be conceited. I coach football, so I'm conceited, and they go in and they make the alignment. That coach makes the alignment. Suddenly they're like, whoa, man, what is happening here? So they don't release what's happening in that meeting to try to make sure nobody manipulated anything. They wait before they release it. So like that's why you don't ever see it on IndianaMat from me or Sam Reason or Greg Ratliff or and they ask different people to be on it. So as president, they'll call me, they'll say, hey, can you get a committee together for realignment? And I'm like, sure, I'll bring in the same people I brought in last time. And they'll go, no, bring nobody from last time, all fresh night. Oh, or hey, we want all small schools this time. Let's see what small schools think of the alignment. Last time we were in there, they said you got to bring somebody large and small and from every semi-state. So like I went through our regional rep list for the Coaches Association and was like, well, they're small, they're large, they're small, they're large. And that's how I called who went in. It's interesting. It's not always happy, and it's not easy.
No, it's definitely not easy. And I know we were talking last year when it kind of came up. I went. I think it was Dane or Nick. Someone had a map of all the schools, and I'm like, okay, let's do it pretty simple. Each regional should have about 18 teams. So I'm like, I'm going to start in one of the corners, up north, south, east, west, whatever, and I'm going to get 18 teams. To that, I'm keeping everyone regional the same because I don't think there's going to be very many changes even in location. So I'm like, okay, this is here, picked 18 teams. I'm like, oh wait, we have two here stragglers. Where are they going to go? They're going to go, an hour this way, 2 hours this way, and then you get to a certain point, and then you have like 7 schools that are way out of, like, can't make it to any of the regionals. So it's not an easy thing because not everything's spread out evenly in Indiana. So I definitely, after kind of trying 3 or 4 different ways of doing it, I'm like, I don't even want to do whatever. I don't care anymore.
Oh, it's hard. My favorite example forever is always going to be Greensburg, Indiana. Greensburg, Indiana was 11 miles from Jennings County High School, but it was over 2 hours from, it's less than an hour from Newcastle, but 10 minutes to Jennings County sectional. Jennings County is going to go to Evansville. It's going to be a 2-hour drive. So Greensburg wanted to have the 45-minute drive to Newcastle and the 10-minute drive to sectionals, but that was 2 different semi-states. So, hey, whatever, do you want the 10-minute drive? But you can't have both. You're either going to have, but their sectional was going to be 45 minutes. And so there are, like, it's super hard. And then you pull one out if it's a good team. They do try to they don't try to level. People always ask this, like, why don't they try to level the sectionals? Man, that's almost impossible. So what they do try to level is the regionals, because I mean, you don't have to do 32 of them, you got to do 16 of them. So they'll look at the sectional and see what schools are feeding in, and they go kind of go, can each sectional champion have a possibility of winning this regional? And I know we got some juggernaut teams that just aren't going to lose right now, but you're looking at a broad scope and going, hey, in ours, could Jeffersonville one day beat Columbus East? That's possible. It's not, can Jeffersonville beat Mater Dei every year? So, and I'm not picking on any one school, but they try to level the regional before that. They don't really try to level the semi-state. I mean, Fort Wayne semi-state jokes right now. It's completely joking on that. I just knew Joe would laugh. But what are you going to do? Bring teams from Evansville to Fort Wayne to level that? Like, now you're really talking large geographic areas. So they kind of just look at regional, and they look at same school corporation, barring major metropolitan areas. Like, they're not going to put all of Indianapolis in one thing, but Jeffersonville schools, we have us, Charlestown, New Wash, we're all going to be in the same one because it's kind of the same corporation school budget on transportation. So they're going to put that together. They're always going to put Columbus North and Columbus East in the same sectional. They're always going to put Bloomington South, Bloomington North in the same sectional. You can see all I know is Southern Indiana schools. So, but that's how they look at it. But then in Evansville, for a while, they had a north-south split. They picked a road and they north-south split it, and then they went east-west, or maybe that's vice versa on the years. But when they tried to make a switch, they just pick a road. So, like, there's been years where they just use Interstate 70 and 65 in Southern Indiana, and they just pick a direction because 1 mile over, you're on the other side of the road. So it's arbitrary.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough.
Yeah, no, it's not as easy as it would seem, especially, like I said, I even I had a spreadsheet of where the closest regionals and trying to match it up that way, and it got pretty ugly. So, the other couple little things, new NFHS rules were announced last week, was it? I think. Not very much. Facial hair is allowed as long as you can do a skin check. And then the shoelaces or shoes coming off is just a stall call instead of the technical violation and injury time, which is interesting. And I know, like you said, that there will be clarifications on that. And technically, Indiana doesn't have to follow them. Usually we do. Sometimes we do a little bit of a modification on them. We all have our own, I know state to state even has different interpretations. I know for a while that what they considered shoelaces secured Some states said tape, some said just a double knot is secured, so we'll have to wait for official stuff, but that's good. I'm not against the facial hair thing. I think it's been, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Change, man. I don't want change.
It does look weird in college with guys with like beards and facial hair, but I'm getting used to watching it, with their headgear and stuff. Like
what's the hair that gets me? I mean, I'm just used to wrestling in 1991, and we had baby smooth faces, and like, since I wasn't a very good wrestler, I was like, please notice his hair touches his eyebrows. Please notice his hair touches. I'm joking, but kind of joking. Like now when somebody's hair is real long, there can't be anything I think is more gross than inhaling someone's hair and then pulling and come up there out of my throat. But that's what today's kids okay with. Yeah. So I go with it, and it's the rule.
Yeah. So just some minor things. There's some, I don't know. The NFHS frustrates me because I know they have a laundry list. I've seen the survey they sent about like a 4-point near fall, college out of bounds. They had some really good things, and then nothing. They didn't do any of those. I think they just leak out little rules here and there. That way they keep their jobs. That's a personal opinion, but it's like they could do a lot more. But I think that's kind of a job security thing that they just do little things here and there. That way they like, next year we'll do that. And I don't know. It seems like a very interesting meeting and stuff to be involved in.
We've asked to be a test state a couple of times on stuff. I think the out of bounds rule or the 1 foot in for a while. And it's interesting on what we'll ask to be a test state on. I never really know what a test state is. I'm like, didn't you watch college? Wasn't that the test? What happens? But that is a thing. Like you said, sometimes we have to follow things somewhat, and we don't. There is times our officials association asks for a test year, and I guess maybe they're telling the IHSAA how many injuries there were. I don't really know. That's not in my wheelhouse. That's official.
As Jeremiah said, I'm glad we're focused on those things instead of things that make wrestling better. Yes, I agree.
I think Jeremiah on here is telling somebody that they spell his name wrong. I'm wondering if maybe he's always got it wrong.
Well, maybe. Yes. Yeah. Oh, he spells all his wrestlers' names wrong. I had to. He
says that they spell it wrong.
Yes.
See?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He is notorious for I don't know. I still don't know if Connor Gibson is OR or ER, but he spells
or K.
Yeah, or K. Yes, K or C. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah. I agree. The referees now have way more stuff to do before the match, even the first whistle of a match, than ever. They don't even know how. I mean, they spend more of their time talking about, we got to make sure this and this and this. Like, can we work on reffing the matches? Those are the important things, not the shoelaces. Not
think of how many things. And I hope every referee. I don't know if referees get on here. Well, Jim Littlejohn was. Yeah. Or is Jim in our IHSWCA meeting on Sunday was talking about how he's met a couple guys recently. I mean, this is a plug for refs, right? I know we're getting long overdue here, but I'm having fun. I hope we are. Him and Mark Monday in our IHSWCA meeting were talking about how many young officials have walked off the mat, like literally started a tournament and were like, man, I'm done. I'm never reffing again this year. And they each met 3 or 4 guys like that. And I'm going to not just pick on coaches for how we treated the refs. They're like, today's kid, 20-year-old ref in the matches, is not as thick-skinned as our referees once were, but also our coaches are meaner than they once were. And when you're adding to that referee, like, hey, man, you got to get here 2 hours early. What for? Well, the weigh-in is going to be an hour and a half before it, so you need to be a half hour before that. And then after the weigh-in, you can't just go sit in an office. You got to come back after the kids go bite their nails and make sure they all bit their nails. Check their nail biting. And then you're going to sit there and have a equipment meeting. I coach football. I don't see the ref till we flip the coin. I don't know where they're at. Like, I just think they're going to show up, and they do. But in wrestling, man, they're there before it, and then we have a 12-hour tournament, and we eat lunch for an hour and a half with them. And if we yelled at them all day, they got to eat lunch with you. It's a weird situation. And then we say we wish more guys would do it. So I'm just asking everybody out there, if you're listening, like, I wish I would have been easier on refs a long time ago. I know now I try to take a special note to go, oh man, they don't have enough time to coach. I got time to coach. I'm a teacher. They don't have enough time to coach, so this is their only way they can give back. And I got to quit running them off, or I don't get to. I know I used to say I hate referees. Without them, my job is obsolete. I got to keep them. So yeah. I think we need to help them out a little bit.
No, I agree. And like
Hunter Grimson, there it is.
He actually spelled it right this time. So the only last thing we have on the list, spring clinic is next week. So
yeah,
you might as well, since I have you on here, you can do a plug.
Yeah, I'm excited. I go to a lot of clinics. I go to 6 a year. And the reason I say that is I try to go 6 a year. If you can't tell, I don't have kids and I'm not married yet. And I do things like hang up Babe Ruth pictures. And my girlfriend made me take down my Rocky room. She said, you're over 40 years old. You don't need a Rocky room. But that's why we're not married yet. So so we have this clinic coming, and Brian Smith. I go see Brian Smith talk a few times now. He's awesome, from Missouri. You want to talk about a transformational coach? Man, that guy like transforms people. And not only that, I apologize on my language right here. He has some badass wrestlers, right? Like, and he's some of our best Indiana guys. So, we got Floyd Central and Cathedral. Individuals going down there to Mizzou soon. So this is an awesome opportunity to hear it straight from the guy recruiting them. And I don't even know what kind of technique he shows, to be honest. I only listen to him speak, and I'm so fired up after it that I'm real excited. So Brian Smith speaking, a guy I've tried to get for years. But when you're a good coach, it's hard to have time. So first time in an Indiana clinic. After that, Matt Cates from Penn High School. Matt works with Brad Harper and all his, the heart doggies and dogettes of Penn area. So, man, in the weight room, I've went to listen to him talk at least twice and said, man, we need you at our clinic. So he'll do a 1-hour spiel on what they do in the Penn weight room. If you've never seen their facilities, like, that guy works it to make sure the kids have good things. And then just kind of hanging in the wing is Jim Grunewald, 2-time Olympian, 3-time world team member. He's a coach at Wheaton Junior College. Wheaton College in Chicago. He wrestled for the Peterson brothers in college. I've never looked at the timeline. He might have even wrestled with Tom Allen. IU's football coach. I have not looked at that timeline. One day I'm going to do that. But he wrestled for the Peterson in college. So he's coming to our clinic just specifically to pass out his book. I finished his book and was sitting there going, man, what kind of clinic gift could I get? And we already had the clinic booked with speakers. So I called him up and said, hey, if you drive down here, we'll buy a book for every single coach that comes to the clinic, and that'll be our clinic gift. So he's literally just coming to sit and sign his book, and you'll get a free copy of his book for coming.
Yeah. A plug for Brian Smith, Jay Conway's dad. He sent me a message about he's on a Wrestling Changed My Life. I think that's what it is. Podcast a few weeks ago. He sent me the link to it, and I listened to it on the way home from. We were driving back from Gatlinburg, and my wife was listening too. My kids were not even paying attention, but she like perked up a few times when he said stuff like, "Who is that?" And she was just kind of doing her own thing, and she's like, some of the things he said was pretty good. And so, number one, check out that podcast, and if you're questioning whether you should go, you listen to that podcast, you'll probably want to go because there's a lot of things in there. And after what I text with Jay's dad a little bit, how can you not want your kid to go wrestle for him? Win or lose, if he ever wins a wrestling match ever again, he's still wrestling for a pretty good guy and stuff. And it's pretty interesting, especially when my wife's I'm listening to all sorts of podcasts on an 8-hour drive to try to get drive over with, and she like perks up a couple times about like little like that, like what's this guy? What's what did you just say there? Rewound it and stuff. So check out that podcast. It's really good. I don't know if you've listened to it or not.
Yeah, no, I'm going to tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
So thank.
So.
And I'll get you that. I need to give you a different link to get the.
We'll talk after this. After we go off, I'll tell you how to open it up. But anything else? I guess before we leave, we've gone a good hour and a half, hour 45. So hopefully lots of good information.
Yeah, man, I had a blast.
Gotten some compliments. So you're not as good looking as Mike, but we can work on that. So anything else before we go?
No, thank you for having me, man. I had a blast. I watched these and kind of like, man, I wish I had something to say on there. It looks fun. So I'm glad.
So sounds good. Thanks for joining us. Stick around here and we'll talk a little bit after here. So thanks, and we'll have another one soon sometime. So talk to you everyone later.